Hello and welcome back to the Grandmaster division of the Intermezzo Championship. After 2 games finished, I have 2 points, so not really the greatest start for me, but with 4 games remaining, everything is still possible for me. And if I want to keep my hopes alive of potentially still winning the league, then the next game could be important because it will be a game against totsilence, who has so far had the greatest start out of the players. If the season, however, should turn out to be more of a fight against relegation, then the other opponent in the game, Gandin, could be a contender in that fight, and so it could be important to maybe keep him on distance and get a lead over him, and also, of course, stay in touch with Ipogi and Wolves. Alright, so that will be an important game, and now without further ado, let's take a look at the game. In this game, I am playing in the 3rd position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And from the leaders, we have some theater synergy in H3 with Marlene, Chaplin, and Fleming. There's no Hollywood, however, but the internet is there. We have not the most lab synergy. There's only Einstein, at least there's the spaceflight and potentially also the internet for a little bit of synergy. We have no Pierre, but Mandela is there. Churchill and Gandhi are both there for the military, but no Manhattan Project. There's also no Red Cross. In H2, we have the Ocean Liner service together with Maria. We have James Cook, but no Suez Canal this time. We have Anthony Gaudi and Shakespeare as culture leaders. James Watt together with the railroad is there. And then Robespierre and Catherine as the military action leaders. In H1, we have Joan of Arc as a military action leader. We have Nostradamus to help with the strength. Barbarossa can help as well. Eleanor can be a nice transitional leader. Same is true for Columbus. And then we have Saladin and also Isabella as just some solid leaders. Universitas and Silk Road are both there to do strength wonders with Great Wall and Meiji Castle are there, and then also the Machu Picchu. totsilence is in the 1st position and makes the decision to go for the pyramids. He could have also just taken the engineering genius, but finds it more important to just secure a very strong wonder for himself. That leaves Gandin the option to take the Engineering Genius together with the leader, and that is also what he will go for. He takes Engineering Genius and Caesar. So far he doesn't know if maybe he gets a nicely synergizing wonder for Caesar, but there is the potential that a Colossus could come out of the deck, and also just getting a leader and the Engineering Genius is of course also already quite a strong start. And with taking Caesar, he also makes my decision a bit more difficult, because there is still Hammurabi on the row, who is of course a very strong leader, and I could take him even together with an urban growth, for example. But if I take him now, I will be playing behind Caesar, and that's always a bit annoying. So the question here was, should I be greedy enough and still go for Hammurabi, or is it just too dangerous and should I go for an alternative? And at the end I made a decision that I want to go for an alternative, and instead I went for urban growth and Aristotle. I do think in 3rd position, Aristotle is quite a strong leader, because the first technologies will be available earlier compared to the earlier positions, and so I think it's a very fine leader. In a vacuum, maybe not as strong as Hammurabi, but with him I'm not as much in danger with playing behind Caesar. And while I now leave Hammurabi for totsilence, he already has the pyramids for an additional civil action. He also will now be, if he should go for him, be playing Hammurabi against Caesar. He's playing in 1st position, so maybe not as big of an issue for him. But if I go for Hammurabi, then he will just get Aristotle, and together with the pyramids, that of course also could end up being a very strong leader for him. So here I didn't want to play Hammurabi behind Caesar, and at the end went with Aristotle plus the urban growth. Now it's totsilence's turn. Let's see if he is willing to go for Hammurabi, and he indeed is. He goes for Hammurabi, builds a mine, increases his population, takes the stockpile. If there's a 2 resource development revealed at some point, maybe the stockpile could help him finishing the pyramids earlier. There's no Colossus revealed, and with that Gandin will go for Caesar, increasing his population, and will go for the Acropolis, which also at least gives 1 strength, which at some points can also make an important difference, especially with the potential double aggression that Caesar can threaten sometimes. Now it is my turn. I will start by building a mine. I will also elect Aristotle. And now I could just do maybe a relatively normal, efficient turn. I could increase my population, then maybe take a frugality or something. Or I could also say that now with my remaining 2 civil actions, I could of course take the library, but if I take the frugality from the discard spot, then totsilence would need to take either Richland or cultural heritage, otherwise the library will still be available for me at the next turn, and there are some interesting wonders that I could go for if I should miss out on the HA wonder at the end. So I think grabbing library for 2 is not really necessary here, but what I could do of course is take the alchemy, scoring my first science with Aristotle and already having something that I can invest into. And at the end, it was the decision that I went with. However, I'm not completely certain if it was the right decision, because I'm playing against Caesar. There is the potential that the game could be a little bit messy, and maybe instead I should just go for the frugality, not make a bit of a commitment, which I'm doing here with paying 2 civil action for the alchemy, and if maybe I from now on just have to focus on military and can't invest into the alchemy in the near future, then there's a chance that maybe those 2 civil actions could have been invested better elsewhere. So maybe just staying a bit more flexible, increasing my population, taking the frugality, and then seeing what out of those technologies will be available for me for cheaper at the next turn, maybe could have been the better alternative. On the other hand, I have now the potential to invest into alchemies very quickly. Gandin didn't get a Colossus, so there is definitely the chance that it will work out nicely. And it's of course also great to already start scoring some science with Aristotle. But I'm not certain if maybe I should have just taken a frugality, and then there's a good chance that some technologies will be available for me for cheap at the next turn. I draw 2 cards, the Good Harvest and also a colonization card already that can potentially be important to have if the Gandin is going for a bit of an aggressive play. totsilence builds the second lab and is actually willing to take the iron here for 3 civil actions. With the last civil action he will just play the stockpile. Maybe there could have been even an idea here of taking the cultural heritage, which would ensure that totsilence can already go for the iron at the next turn, and also would make it that the library will be discarded for me. But it also is somewhat civil action. It's a bit costly. There's a chance that with the help of some developments, especially if Gandin will double seed, maybe there will be some science revealed for totsilence anyway, and there could be some interesting H1 wonders that I could go for directly, so maybe denying library could be potentially interesting, but also not the most important. But interesting that totsilence is willing to go for the iron here for so expensive, but of course an early iron is quite strong. Maybe he will be able to go for a very strong setup, but investing 5 science into an early iron without having any leader or wonder that produces some additional science can also sometimes be a bit tricky if there will be an early military push, for example, from Gandin. Now it's Gandin's turn. He will seed and opens the development of civil life that will allow totsilence at his next turn to already go for the iron if he wants to. Gandin will seed again and then even more science revealed with the development of science. Gandin will increase his population with the development of civil life, takes Nostradamus, then takes the knights and builds the first step of the Acropolis. Nostradamus, probably taken just because he's a very solid leader, but partly maybe also as a bit of a hate draft with grabbing the knights. Gandin is showing some intentions also with not building the second lab yet, that he's showing some intentions that maybe he wants to build some military relatively quickly, and Nostradamus would of course be a very easy solution either for me or totsilence to be a big help against a potential strength push, so maybe Gandin also taking Nostradamus here to take an easy solution away from me and totsilence to respond to a potential strength push from him. Now it's my turn. I start my turn by taking the Code of Laws. With the development of science, I now have enough science after having taken the Code of Laws to already develop it this turn. Getting an early 5th civil action just allows to get a really nice boost with Aristotle, so I was willing to pay 2 civil actions for it here and I will develop it immediately. However, now for the last 2 civil actions, first of all I have to get out of corruption and I make the decision here to build a second lab. Of course there's the chance to maybe build an alchemy at some point directly, but now after having spent some science into Code of Laws, it will maybe take a little while until I can go for the alchemy, and so I just wanted to get the science production going now. After doing all of that I have only 1 civil action left, and maybe I played a bit greedily here because I actually still decide to go for the library. I have now, thanks to the urban growth, saved some resources. If there's a 2 resource development revealed, I can finish the library very quickly. I get a bit of science and culture production, and I think it is definitely a nice thing to still invest into the library here. But if I don't go for it, there could be Silk Road, there could be a Universitas in case I have to respond to a strength push, there could be a Meiji Castle, there could be Great Wall. So maybe it could be fine to skip the HA Wonder here and instead of taking the library, maybe take the Swordsman. Because Gandin has now already taken the first copy of Knights. If I don't take this copy of Swordsman, there's only one copy of Swordsman and Knights left, and there might still be a fine chance that I will get one of them, maybe also in the near future, but it's just not guaranteed. And Gandin, as I said at his turn, there are some signs that maybe he wants to go for a strength push here, and I also would score another science with Aristotle. I would get a military tech for one civil action. I could of course also say that I don't go for the Code of Laws, but I do think the Code of Laws is even more important than the library here. Getting this fifth civil action going can really lead to some strong value generated by Aristotle. So I really would like to go for the Code of Laws here. I have to get out of corruption. And then maybe I should have taken the Swordsman here instead of the library. At the end I went for the library, and finishing that quickly still could generate some very strong value for me. And also I still have a shot at getting one of those military texts. Gandin has now already the Knights. I'm playing in front of totsilence. I have some civil actions, so potentially I can also reach out to a copy if needed. And so I think it's a fine decision, but not grabbing a military attack now when it's available for one, and when Gandin, with having Caesar, maybe wants to go for a bit of a strength push soon, is a bit greedy, and maybe I should have grabbed the Swordsman instead of the library. And especially after having drawn those infantry tactics, having a copy of Swordsman certainly would have been nice. However, there is some help available here for potentially defending against Gandin, because totsilence offers me the open borders agreement, which I happily accept, of course. With him having Hammurabi, maybe he gets even more value out of it. But now, after having skipped the Swordsman, I thought this additional military action might also prove itself very useful to me as well. And in the last game I had Caesar, and then my opponents offered the open borders agreement. Now it's the other way around, and of course always not great for the Caesar player when this pact is accepted, especially that early. Totsilence goes for an iron upgrade, increases his population, takes Joan of Arc, she might help him with the military, and then he will go for the Swordsman. Gandin cedes. The development of trade routes is revealed. He will go for the Knights, builds one, has the medieval army tactic, increases his population, finishes the Acropolis, and takes the cultural heritage. And we can see here that he indeed went for some very quick military pressure. Is now at 7 strength, could potentially even threaten a double aggression, even though for now he has only 2 cards in hand. And so that's certainly a bit dangerous, and let's see if maybe I get punished for not having taken the Swordsman here, or if I can find an alternative solution to make sure to have enough strength. Now during my turn, I first of all spent one civil action to take the iron. It's not really the it's not really the most urgent thing that I need to do, or that I can allow myself to do, because first of all I of course have to respond to the strength push, but on the other hand it's still a nice technology to have in hand, and I can score now one more science with Aristotle, and I also will, that's also nice because I will actually replace Aristotle this turn. Because after also having taken the cartography, also mainly to score another science with Aristotle, but also as a potential source to get an additional strength in case it is really needed. There's no Suez Canal, so not a big colonization payoff later on, but still having that in hand could potentially be useful. And after having scored those 2 science with Aristotle, I will then go for Saladin. And Saladin will just be very helpful for me here to make sure that I can defend against Gandin, even against the double aggression. The 3rd military action from the open borders agreement is coming in very handy. So I do get a bit lucky here. I think I could have been, it could have been quite a bit harsher for me, this strength push from Gandin, if I wouldn't have had the opportunity to accept this open borders agreement, and if maybe Saladin wouldn't have been available here for me now for one civil action. I at this point don't remember if he was on the row already the turn before, so I certainly a bit fortunate for me, and we can see here maybe that probably I should have taken the Swordsman, because it could just be that I would now be on 2 military actions, and then maybe just building a Swordsman, revealing the fighting band tactic could be very important, being able to do that, even though that wouldn't make me safe from a double aggression. So I go for Saladin, I will increase my population 2 times, I build a warrior, I reveal the fighting man tactic. With that I'm at 3 strength, but thanks to Saladin I can go up to 5 strength, and with that even a double aggression would not be able to go through. I draw 1 card, a raid. Totsilence takes a copy of Ridgeland, goes for Fortune of Arc, goes for the Swordsman. He also of course has to respond, builds a religion, is now at 4 strength, and with being on 4 military actions that should also definitely be enough to make sure to not be in danger of the double aggression. With the 2 Ridgelands he can upgrade his remaining 2 mines efficiently to iron, and then also takes the monarchy. Gandin doesn't go for any politics action, indicating that he has no event, which could be an indicator on the other hand that he has maybe 1 or even 2 aggressions. Also he is going for even more strength, builds another knight. Sadly there's no copy of knights or a swordsman on the row yet, so things could start to get a bit dangerous for me here. On the other hand, Gandin going for that much strength is also, at least up to this point, a bit of a sacrifice. He commits another population into the knights. He could have also gone for maybe for an alchemy now, or just build a second lab normally, but he makes the decision to follow through, and that also of course will have some consequences for my turn again. He then takes the alchemy, the urban growth, and a breakthrough, so some efficient yellow cards and the ability to upgrade at some point. He's missing 1 food to increase his population at the next turn, however there's definitely a good chance that if he is able to see it, or if there's some events pushed before his next turn, that he can get an additional food from the developments, which then would again allow him to build another warrior, going for even more strength. Now it is my turn. As you can see, I take the bread and circuses here. And no, I think the bread and circuses just, there's the potential that those will be very important. I can build 1 now, then I can increase my population, I can build another warrior, I can go for the legion tactic, and thanks to the 2 happy faces from the bread and circuses, I won't have any uprising issues even when I lose the 2 yellow tokens. Sadly there's no Pierre in the game, also no Darwins, not the greatest synergies, but just the strength in the 2 happy faces I think are very important, especially now that it looks like Gandin might be going for even more military. I thought about some different turns. I thought about finishing the library first now, but then I have only 3 resources at the next turn. I could then take the reserves, but building a warrior and a bread and circuses could be a bit difficult, and I instead will now go for the building a bread and circuses, going up in strength, getting out of corruption, and with the last 2 civil actions I made the decision to take this engineering genius, and with having this engineering genius I can now at the next turn finish the library, increase my population, and I will have some resources left over to build a warrior, reveal the legion tactic, which would bring me at 8 strength, and if it's needed I can also go for the cartography, which would bring me then at 9 strength, and hopefully if Gandin, for example, builds another warrior, he will be at 12, so hopefully that should be enough to defend myself, and I would still be able to finish the library, because the next turn could be my last where I have a chance to finish the library. And so I think the engineering genius should be the right pick, even though getting some science with the breakthrough could of course be important or strong as well. I draw some cards, another tactic, so if I should get knights, that could also be a way to increase my strength. Totsilence takes the breakthrough, goes for 1 iron upgrade, builds another swordsman, reveals the legion tactic, making sure to get stronger than me, and also making sure that he can defend against potential aggressions from Gandin. Gandin this time can use his politics phase again, maybe he's drawn some events that he wants to push. The development of agriculture is revealed, that will allow him to increase his population at his turn, and he gets even more population because the development of settlement is revealed, so with that he has more than enough population to first of all build an additional warrior, going up to 12 strength, but also building an additional lab, now finally getting some science production going. With building that lab also reducing the science cost of the theocracy with the Acropolis, and out of the sudden he's at 13 strength, he will get 3 draws, and he has 1 more turn where he will have Cisan, where he can go for double aggression, so he is really... He follows up with his plan, thanks to the development of settlement, now also has the science production fixed, and commits to the theocracy here, but at a relatively cheap cost, and thanks to the Acropolis, and responding to this 13 strength push will be quite difficult for me, especially as you can see the second copy of Knights and Swordsmen sadly is still not on the row. Now it's my turn, and no. the only way to really make sure to defend against the strength push would actually be to go for the warfare here. With getting an additional military action, I could take it, I could develop it, and then I could maybe increase my population, build 2 warriors or something like this. Then I would be at 9, 10 strength, and I would have 4 military actions. But it would also be very expensive. There's a good chance that maybe I won't have a chance to finish the library here. Maybe that could be fine. I could go for Universitas or Imechi Castle instead, and if I don't build a step this turn, I wouldn't have had at least committed any resources into the Wonder. So maybe I should play it safe. Instead of going for this expensive warfare turn, I went now for a turn where I will finish the library, getting the value out of finishing the library, having the library up and running. And I will at least prepare myself to defend against 1 aggression, but if Gandin indeed has a double aggression, there's now the danger that I get hit by 1. Maybe I should play it safe, but committing 5 science into warfare, not getting the additional science production from the library, and still not being able to then afterwards going into techs like alchemy or iron in the near future, I think would do potentially quite some damage to my economical development over the next few turns. It would be quite expensive. And after Gandin has no Caesar any longer, then hopefully the amount of strength that I'm having with going for the blade that I go for here will be enough to hopefully not be in danger of any more aggressions. But yeah, I'm certainly in a dangerous spot here. Maybe I should have taken the swordsman here, then of course I would now not have the chance to finish the library, but I could just go for some swordsman, and it could be helpful to make sure that I can defend myself. Of course, also a bit unfortunate that the other military techs now remained in the deck for so long, but yeah, I did a bit of a greedy decision, not taking a military tech when I had a chance for 1 civil action, and now I have to pay the cost for it. Yeah, but as said, I will go for finishing the library, I will build a warrior going up to 7 strength, I will reveal the legion tactic going up to 8 strength, and I will also develop the cartography. With that I'm 4 strength behind Gandin, at least making sure that I can defend against 1 aggression. Of course, going for the cartography is also a bit of a commitment, so maybe you could argue that I should just go for the warfare, but again, I wouldn't have the additional science production of the library. It would cost me 1 science more, and I do think the situation could be a bit tough afterwards for me. But now, of course, I'm in danger of potentially getting hit by an aggression if Gandin has 2 of those. With my last civil action, I will increase my population to get out of corruption. I draw a card, a wealthy territory. Now it's totsilence turn. He will go for another iron upgrade, takes the theology interestingly, builds another swordsman, making sure to get stronger, and with the theology he makes sure to, at the next turn when the age potentially might have ended, to not have any uprising issues. But as you maybe noticed, he didn't build the pyramids this turn, and with only 8 cards remaining in the deck, it's very, very likely that the age will end before his next turn, so totsilence making a bit of a rough decision, deciding to just let go of the pyramids. Maybe something that I also could have done with the library potentially, especially there could have been still a chance that the age actually doesn't end before my next turn. It's maybe even it was more likely that it would still be HA, and maybe I should have just gone for the warfare, hoping that maybe I also still have a shot at finishing the library at the next turn. Totsilence here goes for building a swordsman, and let go of the pyramids, goes up to 11 strength, and at the next turn can maybe go for theology, which will also give him more strength thanks to Joan of Arc. Gandin goes for the first aggression. I thought for a moment about letting it through, because I think something like Plunder could be even more annoying for me than the Enslave. Of course, losing a population is also basically 3 food, but if he would steal some resources from me, that could be really annoying. And of course, there's also a chance that he actually has only 1 aggression, so I think I have to block this one. And then, of course, I was very afraid to see what is following now. And it's actually again an Enslave, so it maybe wouldn't have made a difference, if I would have defended if I would have let the first aggression through, I at the end sadly will lose the population, and Gandin will get a bit of a boost with those 2 resources and the 2 food. and the 2 resource will actually allow him to go for 2 alchemy upgrades, so he did some economical sacrifices in order to go for the strength push, but now he has gotten some value out of the aggression, has done some damage to me, not only with the lost population, but also with the things that I needed to put into making sure that I can defend myself, and now he gets some nice alchemies going, so I think, with the successful aggression, with having the double alchemy upgrade, I think his position looks fine, even though being stuck on the theocracy could maybe have some consequences at some point. Interestingly, he doesn't go for the Code of Laws to maybe upgrade his theocracy at some point, instead rather has the patriotism in hand. Now it's my turn, and I will lose a population, and this turn I just want to make sure to get stronger, to finally not be in that much danger any longer. I lost the colonization card. If I don't get any stronger, then there's a chance that because of the open borders agreement, totsilence could go for an aggression against me. And so I go for the knights here. I have the phalanx tactic in hand. The swordsmen are still in the deck, so I take those knights. But, no, actually, I take the knights in hand to have the ability to get stronger soon, but I actually made a decision to play it a bit greedily here and go for the alchemy, go for 1 upgrade, and then take the urban growth. And now with the open borders agreement, it is indeed the case that totsilence could potentially go for an aggression against me. And now it's the question, of course, if that is a justified risk. I do think when now after getting hit by an aggression, I may be a little bit behind and maybe I need to take some more risks. And I also do think that if I would have gone for the knights this turn, again, it would have slowed my development down by quite a bit, because I would have, after developing the knights, 3 signs available the next turn, meaning I wouldn't have the chance to go for either iron or alchemy. Now I have, thanks to the 1 increased science production, I can go for the knights the next turn, I can build 1, and thanks to the urban growth, I can go for another upgrade to alchemy, really getting my science production up and running, and really then maybe getting quicker into a government form, just having enough science for all of the things that I need. So, and there's of course a chance that I maybe will draw a defense card, so if totsilence has an aggression, and if he is actually willing to try an aggression, and with me letting the second aggression of Gandin through, he can, of course, or he basically knows that I at the moment don't have a defense card available, so if he has an aggression, it's probably worth a try for him. So I'm not sure if it is worth the risk here, but if I go for the knights, I also think it is a bit of an annoying situation, where at the next turn I still can't go for alchemy or iron, and it would potentially also be quite a setback. And with now I just felt like my position could go into the wrong direction, so here I was willing to take that risk, hoping that either totsilence doesn't have an aggression, or that maybe I just draw a defense card at the end of my turn. Sadly, I don't draw a defense card, so now I have to hope that totsilence does not go for an aggression. H2 starts, totsilence loses the pyramids, and I don't get punished here. I was very, very happy about that. I get punished in another way though. The Reign of Terror is revealed, costing me another population, and after already having lost 1 to the enslaved, the second one actually does hurt quite a bit. I don't have a free population, because I went with the urban growth as my last civil action instead of increasing my population. I do think it was the right choice, because allowing me to go for knights and another upgrade just is quite strong, I think, and the resources are generally quite useful. But sadly now I have to lose something. Maybe if I want to go for the phalanx tactic, I can just lose a warrior and then go for a knight. Totsilence now goes for the theology, builds 1, actually plays the resources and just goes for another upgrade here, making him stronger. Maybe also all of the cards that are available to take for him he didn't like that much, which is interesting. I think something like Universitas or Magic Castle could still be interesting for him to take with his iron production. On the other hand, with not committing to one of those wonders, he leaves himself open for strong H2 wonders like Harvard College, Ocean Liner Service, and Railroad. So maybe he doesn't want to block himself from those wonders, especially because he doesn't... I mean, he could have, if he wouldn't have gone for the second upgrade here, could have maybe already finished Universitas at the next turn. So I do think that could have been an interesting option, but totsilence instead just goes for another upgrade to theology, and it could be problematic for me, because with the open borders agreement he's basically already at 16 strength, and I have to see how I can defend against potential aggression from him at the next turn. He draws 3 H2 cards. Gandin increases his population, takes a rich land. It might be helpful for him to get into coal at some point. Also goes for the masonry. Now it is my turn. I could potentially think about cancelling the open borders agreement, which could make it a bit easier for me to defend against totsilence, but the third military action could also still be extremely helpful. So at the end, with the turn that I'm playing, it doesn't make a difference anyway, but even if it would have made a difference, maybe it's just too valuable to keep it for some more turns. So instead, for my politics phase, I try to offer a trade routes agreement, being able to use the food as a resource, because with how I'm playing the turn, I will be just stuck with one food, which I could then use as a resource, but totsilence rejects the pact. I make the decision to lose a warrior. I think everything else is just a bit costly. Losing a farm would soon lead to famine. Losing a mine is just quite bad, being stuck on 2 resource production. Losing a lab would cost me some science production, which I maybe can afford to lose the most, but if I keep now the lab, I can upgrade it to another alchemy, making it that I basically would miss out on 2 science production if I lose the HA lab. So I at the end lost a warrior, and now I can either go for knights and a phalanx tactic or for swordsmen and just stay on the legion tactic. And I made a decision here to go for the phalanx tactic, but still at the end of the turn taking the swordsman in hand to be able to potentially upgrade those warriors to swordsmen, also be prepared for H2 tactics, in case I just need some more strength. So I'm now at 11 strength, but there is of course a problem, and that is that with the open borders agreement, totsilence is at 16 strength, and if I don't do anything about it, would be in danger of an aggression. But there's also not really that much that I can do about it. I could have gone for swordsman, building 1, upgrading 1 warrior, but it would be the same amount of strength. And as said, even if I cancel the open borders agreement, I'm still then not able to defend myself. So I could potentially destroy something, build another bread and circuses, cancel the agreement, and then I would be safe. But totsilence at the turn before didn't go for an aggression, even though he maybe knew that I didn't have a defense card at least before I got my draws at the end of my turn. But there's of course now the big danger of getting hit by an H2 aggressions. He only had 3 draws. It's more likely that he has no aggressions than that he has one. The chance that I draw a defense card is really not that high with me only getting 1 draw, but no, I think at this point it's just too expensive to destroying something to go for an arena, cancelling this pact is just overall too expensive, and so I just went for this 1 knight, leaving myself with 1 resource, which I can use to go for an upgrade, going up to 5 science production, and then I just hope that again totsilence can't go for another aggression, as I felt like preparing against this aggression would be too dangerous. Or not too dangerous, it's now dangerous, because I'm vulnerable to an H2 aggression, but too costly. With the last 2 civil actions, I made a decision to take the swordsman and then actually skip the last action because of frugality. Will probably take a long time until I can use it. Printing press I can't really use, and also just taking a card for 2 civil actions didn't feel like the best option here, and at the end I just wanted to have the swordsman available. So now again, I was really hoping that totsilence doesn't go for an aggression. This time I was even more afraid than at the turn before, because now there could even be H2 aggressions that I could get hit by, and with my still somewhat fragile economy, getting hit by an A2 aggression could just be an extremely big setback. I draw the acceptance of supremacy. And sadly, this time totsilence is trying an aggression. Interestingly, it's a raid, which means that he had this aggression also in hand already the turn before, but maybe was not willing to deploy it against me. But now he is, and it is successful, and that is certainly a very painful one. Losing an alchemy, which costs 6 resources with me only being at 3 production, is quite expensive. If I'm not able to rebuild it, I miss out on a lot of science in total, and I also think this aggression is actually extremely helpful for totsilence. The 3 additional resources will allow him to not only go for 1, but even for 2 scientific method upgrades, which first of all allows him to spend his actions efficiently, as taking one of those cards. I guess taking opera is somewhat fine, but with being on 4 he has to be careful also with hand space, so I think it's definitely an improvement on how he can spend his actions. And he of course gets 2 more science, so I think very helpful aggression sadly for him. And as we can see, the aggression is even more helpful, also And maybe him going for the aggression had something to do with the top card that he has seen, because that top card is actually the scientific breakthrough, so the additional upgrade that totsilence is able to do, actually netting him 4 additional science immediately. So I really didn't like to see this. He's now at 15 science, can easily go into a government form, so this double scientific method upgrade, me getting hit by the aggression, and then the scientific breakthrough being revealed, me getting less science because I just lost the alchemy. Yeah, that I of course was not really happy to see, and I had the fear that that might be an extremely big swing and could be hard to overcome. Gandin takes a copy of Selective Breeding. They're actually both of them on the row, and all of us don't have irrigation in hand. There is an ocean liner service, but at my next turn I have to really think about if I want to pay a big price in order to get this copy of Selective Breeding, or if I'm willing to very likely miss out on it. Gandin builds a religion to get out of corruption, maybe. There could, of course, also be a rebellion coming, potentially. Now it is my turn. I build a knight, and I don't use my politics phase, as I think that all of the cards... I mean, I could seed some colonies, but I have no colonization card at all. I might be in danger of potential aggressions if I win one, so I didn't want to push any colonies here. I could, of course, have offered a pact again, but yeah, maybe I should have just offered a pact instead of just skipping the politics phase, but the chance that it will be accepted is probably also very low. And no, I build a knight. I'm now at 13 strength. If I keep the strength of Saladin, that is enough to now be safe from an aggression. And I could also copy into the medieval army tactic for 1 additional strength. However, the 2 draws are of course also somewhat costly. On the other hand, I probably want to copy at some point just to have the 1 additional strength, and so I made a decision after taking reserves. And I will copy the tactic at the end of the turn, but let's talk about the cards that I'm taking. And now, I think the big question here is whether to take the Selective Breeding or not, and of course also the strategy could be a card that I need to consider, which could help me making myself safe. If I don't take it, I let it be available for totsilence, who has now a lot of science. If I don't take the Selective Breeding, totsilence will very likely take the Selective Breeding, and then I'm without any food solution. The Ocean Liner serves if I not end up getting that one. It's my last resort to get some population going. So some really tough choices. Just taking strategy and selective breeding I think is not an option. I could potentially do it, but I need some yellow cards. My economy is not in a good shape, and I need some yellow cards in order to still be able to do some stuff. And yeah, it's a very tough choice. Maybe I could have just taken reserves, breakthrough, and now the strategy. However, I think the Wave of Nationalism is also potentially a very strong card for myself. And at the end I made a decision to actually just go for yellow cards. The strategy, while it could help myself, I also would be quite costly from the science that it takes. I still need a government form. I still ideally want to go for some resource upgrades. Maybe I should still take it, making myself a lot more safe from potential wars. I could potentially even develop it this turn and just take 2 yellow cards, making me safe even if I end up taking the civil action from Saladin, but also having committed a lot of science, having developed it without the breakthrough. So I took the reserves. Just resources can be extremely helpful, but in case I really need it, I can also play it for food and then increase my population. I think that was also the reason why I didn't want to offer the trade routes agreement this turn, because if I spend the food in order to gain a resource, I don't have this option any longer. And at the end I just went for yellow cards, and I do think all of those yellow cards are extremely valuable for me, and at least I actually will also take the urban growth, so I gain a lot of yellow cards. Taking the last one is a bit painful because it lets actually fall the selective breeding down to 1 civil action for totsilence, and with him being on low civil actions, if it would have stayed on 2, at least it would have been a bit more difficult for him to implement both strategy and the selective breeding into his turn. Of course, he could have just taken strategy, develop it, take the selective breeding, but maybe he also wants to have cavalryman, as he doesn't have any cavalry tech for the moment. But on the other hand, this urban growth to either rebuild a lab at some point or maybe another Britain circus will also be quite helpful. So At the end I just loaded up on some yellow cards and made the decision to skip the selective breeding, hoping that maybe I have a shot at getting the Ocean Liner. Gandin and totsilence, at least both at the moment, don't have the most civil actions. Gandin already has the selective breeding, totsilence will take the selective breeding, so I was hoping that maybe even if the Ocean Liner service appears in their turn, especially on Gandin's turn, there's still a chance that they won't take it and that I will maybe then be able to take it. Then I said I will copy the tactic and I make a bit of a questionable choice at the end of my turn. Yeah, I will copy the tactic now. I mean, I could also delay it, but I think it's also not bad to just have the additional strength now available. But at the end of my turn, I made the decision to go for a bit of a bluff. And probably I shouldn't do this. I mean, I have no full hand. I will now at the end of the turn do the decision to take the civil action from Saladin. At the turn before, when totsilence hit me with the aggression, I was 5 strength behind, counting in the open borders agreement already, meaning I would have needed 2 H1 defense cards, and I thought that if I now go for the civil action from Saladin, it just maybe looks like I have 1 card out of one defense card in hand, because otherwise, no, that would be a bit of risk to take, and also it's just completely possible. Totsilence went for an H1 aggression at the turn before. It's definitely possible he has no further aggressions in hand. And so I made the decision to take the civil action, as I felt like my position is a bit rough. Maybe I need to take some risks, but maybe that risk is a little bit unnecessary. And also with people knowing a bit about my playstyle, I think the chances that if totsilence has actually an aggression available, the chances that he will deploy it is maybe a bit higher than against potential other players. So with having that in mind, I think I maybe need to start taking a bit less of such risks potentially. And yeah, so I take the civil action and let's see if I get punished for it. And sadly, totsilence has another aggression. I mean, I can be a bit lucky that he didn't have any H2 aggressions, at least seemingly, unless he maybe thought that I can actually defend and didn't want to deploy more military actions or something. So, at least no H2 aggressions, but still in my position, losing 3 resources is extremely painful. I mean, if at the end of my turn I have 1 civil action, I can with my last civil action take something like efficient upgrade or something like this, then I get somewhat compensated with having taken the civil action, but probably losing the resource will end up being quite painful for me. Also, now it could end up being a bit difficult for me to spend my civil actions effectively. Yeah, so while I think that at the turn before, at the 2 turns before where I was vulnerable to an aggression, I think there were good enough reasons. I mean, the turn before it just was not really possible unless I really go for some destruction. The turn before that where I didn't go for the knights, instead started going for alchemy, it was again a bit questionable, but I think that was also understandable. But just for the 1 civil action, risking a potential H2 aggressions loss, I think was not worth it, even though I am probably at this point a bit behind and maybe I have to take some risks. But here I think the reward of the 1 civil action maybe not being enough to justify that risk, even with me being a bit behind. Totsilence takes the selective breeding, so I really need to hope towards the Ocean Liner service now. I was not really happy about my position here. And again, the additional resources allow totsilence a more efficient play, allowing him to actually go for 2 upgrades instead of only 1, allowing him to already at the next turn increase his population. Still interesting though that he doesn't go for the strategy with the science that he has available. That could end up being quite a strong card for him. Also, he doesn't go for the cavalryman, but he just completes his economical development very efficiently. Now it's Gandin's turn. He seeds and opens the historic territory. I have the cartography, but I pass on that one because I have enough happy faces and I can't afford to lose a military unit at this point. Gandin at the end will win the colony for warrior, can rebuild some units actually with the patriotism, interestingly. Instead of just building a warrior, disbands even another warrior, builds a knight, has the heavy cavalry tactic, is willing to sacrifice some draws here, and then to get out of corruption probably he builds this religion. which is a bit weird. He had enough happy faces already, and with it being a bit weird, and with him having Nostradamus, I think building this religion here can also be seen as a hint that maybe in the remaining events there could potentially be an immigration, because now he would be part of that, so that could potentially be part of his reasoning here. With the last 2 civil actions, he will go for the coal, and with the rich land, he at the next turn can maybe go for some coal upgrades and then start some economy. His economy, I mean, his science is very fine, but he is still on very low action, so his economy not being as great as totsilence, but thanks to Nostradamus, he has accumulated already quite a bit of a culture lead, and that could be a bit tough for me to overcome, as at the moment I also need to release. It's a bit of a struggle to still get some economy going. But at my next turn, there is an option available for me that I will also take, and that I think will give me quite a bit of a boost, and which gave me some hope again that maybe with that turn being possible, I can actually complete my economical development quickly over the next turns, and maybe then be in a somewhat fine position going into H3. Probably still the worst position, but maybe being a bit more in touch. Because during my turn, as you can see, first of all I skip politics, and then the first card that I'm taking here is actually Robespierre. There is a republic on the row. I could also potentially develop it normally, but afterwards I would really struggle with having enough science for everything. And here I have the shot to get into republic this turn at a low science cost, and also already having the additional military action that I ideally would like to have when being on republic. So even though it's a bit expensive, I go for Robespierre here, I elect him. I then need to make space in my hand. I will do that with playing the reserves for resources. Then I can take the republic. I don't have any civil actions left, but I only need all of my military actions to do the revolution with Robespierre. After that I have 3 civil actions left, and I will use them to take the cannons, the reserves, and an efficient upgrade. So I think that's quite a strong turn, and I mean, while I got hit by an aggression, this turn wouldn't have been possible if I would have taken the strength from Saladin. I wouldn't have enough civil actions to go for both of those, and maybe with that, maybe losing the 3 resources could have been a worthwhile sacrifice in order for this turn being possible. Of course, it's hard to tell. Maybe I could have done something different, but now I have more than enough science. I can go either into iron or coal maybe soon. Hopefully, I will have a shot at getting the ocean liner. That's still a very big part of the puzzle that I maybe need to come back into this game. But I'm now at 8 civil actions. I have more than enough science to do everything else. I have a lot of yellow cards in hand. I have some military techs in hand. I don't get any draws this turn, so I maybe still need to hope towards getting a tactic, but I do think this turn gives me an extremely big boost. It gave me some hope, and as said, maybe despite getting hit by this aggression, it's still in hindsight somewhat justified taking the civil action from Saladin, but I still think it was a bit too greedy to take the civil action, but maybe still somewhat understandable with me feeling that I was a bit behind at this point. This time I'm no longer in the agent of aggression, because thanks to Robespierre I have now an additional military action, so I'm still 4 strength behind, but I can now defend, and totsilence doesn't go for an aggression, he cedes, and indeed there is the immigration on top, so Gandin with building the religion will now get an additional population. Totsilence will go for the Republic, goes for the railroad as his first wonder that he probably will complete after having skipped building the pyramids. He takes some yellow cards and builds the first step of the railroad, can finish it at the next turn. At least that means that he can't easily take the ocean liner service, which maybe increases my chances to get that wonder, but the railroad will also be very helpful for him, making him more threatening, maybe compensating for the strength loss of Joan of Arc at the end of the age, and also of course just increasing his economy, and he already has some food production, so the ocean liner service he maybe doesn't need that much. So I think the railroad being a very strong, probably the strongest one even from him, from the ones remaining in H2. Gandin goes for the coal, and then he makes the decision to also go for the constitutional monarchy. At a discount with the Acropolis, he loses the theocracy, but he still has enough happy faces, so also the religion doing some work in that regard. And I think it's probably a good decision, because staying on 4 civil actions for too long probably would have been problematic for him. He then goes for an upgrade to coal, takes the rich land and the organized religion. Now it is my turn, and here I actually make the decision to push, because when you take a look at my hand, I have the efficient upgrade, I have the reserves, I have 6 resources saved up, and there's a coal available. If I'm willing to play the reserves resources, I can actually go for 2 coal upgrades at my next turn, which I think would be a nice boost for me. And I still have those new deposits in the deck. Of course, even if I go for 2 coal upgrades, I'm at 7 production. Gandin is at the moment at 5, but soon will be at more, and he also knows that I've seeded this event. And then totsilence can finish the railroad. If the event is on top, he sees it and maybe can do the decision to not seed to get even more value out of it. So it might be that my opponents get more resources out of it at the end. But I still felt like with me being low in resource for a while, with me having a lot of civil actions, which hopefully gives me some options to invest those resources, even if I get a bit less resource out of this event at the end, it still might be that the resources are the most valuable for me, and there's at least a chance that I maybe do still get more resources out of it than my opponents, or that maybe totsilence or Gandin have to stop seeding even though they want to seed if they want to get more resources out of it. And also, when I go for those 2 coal upgrades, I have invested those reserves. I'm at 7 resources at the next turn, and at the next turn H likely might have ended. I will have a bit of an uprising issue, and it could just be a very big deal if I, with the help of the new deposits, would be able to just take and complete the ocean liner service. I of course don't know if that will be a possibility. Gandin certainly could take the ocean liner service away if it is already in the row at his turn, but yeah, it could just be huge having this option, so I think seeding the new deposits here is really strong. Sadly, I do get hit by a strength event, the uncertain borders. Losing this yellow token will be a bit annoying, because even if I should get the ocean liner, I soon will have some famine issues. And then I will go for the coal now that I have committed to the new deposits. I think I really have to go for 2 upgrades here, so I go for 1, I play the reserves, I go for a second one. Then I have 3 civil actions remaining. I take this revolutionary idea, as some additional science will still be extremely helpful for me. And then with the remaining 2 civil actions, I could, for example, just take another urban growth, but I already have 1 in hand. I could take cavalryman to be prepared for H3 tactics, but I think the more or the better military tech for me to take here the riflemen. If I don't take those, it probably would be safer to already commit to the swordsman, but like this I can also delay the commitment into an infantry tech. It could be that I draw now something like mobile artillery, so I think that was quite a fine turn here. But the age might end, I will have an uprising issue then, and if I am not able to take and complete the ocean liner, I might have to destroy something, for example that mine, and then put it into bread and circuses. I draw some cards, sadly no tactic, but a defense card which could be helpful, and also the terrorism will likely be a good event for me. Totsilence seeds, there are no new deposits in top, sadly, so it was not a tough decision for him. Instead, just a very straightforward one, with the raiders hitting me and Gandin. He also will now get more resource out of the new deposit, sadly, with being able to finish the railroad. He will go for architecture and for justice system, improving his position even further. So now at 8 resource production will get a big boost with the new deposits. So I think he has quite a strong position here. He's also at 19 strength now. Now it's Gandin's turn. Let's see if he is willing to push. He knows with Nostradamus that the new deposits are coming, and he could go for some more coal upgrades during his turn. And he won't see it, he will go for James Watt, and James Watt will allow him to go for an additional upgrade this turn, meaning James Watt gives him immediately, of course, 4 resources discount, 2 more production this turn, and then another 2 more production with the new deposit. So even if Gandin had a fine event to seed, maybe all of those additional resources from the new deposits are worth it to not seed. So strong for him. At the end I will sadly get the least resources out of it, but as I anticipated, those resources will be extremely helpful for me, and at least Gandin going for James Watt means that he can't go for the ocean liner, and I have an event that I can push in hand, even a good one with the terrorism now, and I will push that, and it will be extremely helpful for me. And also Gandin will, with the remaining civil actions, take the cannons, and with that the age will end. I will have an uprising issue. The ocean liner service nicely drops down to the 2 civil action area for me. I push the terrorism, new deposits are revealed, and those are now extremely helpful, because instead of destroying something, I can just build the ocean liner, fix my uprising, have my population income going. Soon I have some famine issues, but still it's a huge improvement for me getting this ocean liner. And then with the last civil action, I just go for an efficient upgrade, which I can either use to go for the last coal upgrade or maybe for make egg, maybe for computers. There will be some different options for that. So I was very happy to get the ocean liner, and at least I'm now at 8 civil actions. I have my coal mines upgraded, I have the ocean liner service going. Totsilence is now only at 15 strength because he has lost Joan of Arc, so I'm not in danger of an aggression, and I'm also not the weakest. But I'm still a bit of culture behind. We can maybe at the end of my turn, after my production, take a look at the overview now that we are at the beginning of age 3. I do get some interesting draws, impact of technology. Maybe a bit tough to achieve, but could be an interesting option if I get the right cards. Impact of population at the moment being bad, but maybe at the end potentially being good when I had the ocean liner service for some turns. And also a tactic that I can potentially use, so some interesting draws from H3. And yeah, the overview, we can see that I and totsilence have the most civil actions. Totsilence definitely having the better economy, but it's not that big of a difference any longer. He still has more resource and science production, so he definitely has an edge in that. Also has more culture production, so he definitely has a better position than I have. Also, he can still go for a leader now, like Maria Theresa, to gain even more value. Gandin has the most culture, also has a very solid economy, can now maybe go for selective breedings, but he has 2 civil actions less, so that can be a bit of a downside. Doesn't have the most population available for the moment, so it's still, probably I still have the worst position, but it's definitely possible to, if I get the right cards, maybe a bit of luck to, to still achieve something in that game. Now it's Totsilence turn. He will seed. The prosperity is revealed, giving everyone a bit of additional food. Sadly, he has a chance to take this copy of military theory. One of his weaknesses was that he is now stuck on 2 military actions. Sadly, with taking the military theory, he will be able to fix this weakness very soon. And also the military theory would be a card that I would really like to take. And now I need to hope that the second copy will be available for me, hopefully relatively soon. Totsilence will then go for Maria, increases the population 2 times, gets some value out of her immediately, and then just builds an additional lab, has now some very strong science production, and can go for the military theory and easily for some other texts. Gandin seeds as well. It's somewhat nice that my opponent seed, because that also means that the terrorism will be revealed more quickly. The inhabited territory is revealed. If I remember it correctly, I was willing to bid an army, but no card, I think. And then I could maybe do a transition, but it could also prevent me from doing some other interesting stuff, for example going for computers. I was not willing to bid too much for that, and at the end Totsilence is able to win it. At least he has to pay a bit of a price, but with Maria I think it's probably worth it. He scores some additional culture and science thanks to the effect, gets some additional yellows, gets some additional resource for rebuilding, so I think a strong win for him. Gandin then has the option to go for an Mech Egg instead of the selective breeding, which I didn't like to see. At least he has to pay some additional civil actions, but it's basically the same cost for him as for the selective breeding and will give him a lot more food. Makes also the impact of population not as great for me as it maybe could have been. He then develops the organized religion. Now it's my turn, and for my politics action I will actually do the decision to see it. Not the impact of population, because that is just looking like it might just end up being too bad for me. But I will actually push the impact of technology, and I will do that because I will go for a computer upgrade, and I will know exactly the position of this impact being in the deck. It will be a bit of a gamble, but with me knowing that it will be coming and the others not knowing that, I thought that maybe there's a chance that I will get more value than my opponents out of it at the end, especially Gandin, who I thought might be the easier player to overtake despite his big production that he got now thanks to James Watt. Doesn't have the most science production, has now already invested into one H3 text, though Totsilence hasn't invested into one, but has a lot of science production. But I was just hoping that I, maybe with knowing the exact position and with it being revealed relatively soon, if I now go for computers and then maybe develop some technologies quickly, maybe I get some nice value out of this impact. So I push. Also, that means that the terrorism will be revealed more quickly. Also, I was the strongest during my turn after Totsilence won the colony. And actually, I hit the politics of strength here, giving me some additional cards. I get some impacts. Both of them could be interesting for the entrenchments. I have already everything that I need. Just a bit annoying that I have those knights available. Then Modern Army could be interesting, also potentially in its outdated form. International Tourism, normally a great card to draw it early. In this case, though, both of my opponents sadly only have one Wonder, so probably not a great card for me to offer. So, no, but the impact of culture maybe could be interesting. All of the players at this point don't have the most culture production. If I get a culture leader from age 3, that could also be a potentially interesting impact to have. And then during my turn, there's first of all a card that I think I definitely have to take, and that is the military theory. I was quite happy that I have a chance to take it. I have to invest some civil actions, but I just think I need this card. If I don't take it, there's definitely the chance that Gandin will take it away during his next turn, and it just leaves me with some options. I have now drawn some impacts. Maybe I can just work with impacts and try to overcome the culture difference with that, but also with those tactics, there might be some military potential that I'm having, and with that, I think I just really need the military theory also, of course, to be safe in order one of my opponents will go for a military push. I don't invest into the military theory immediately, however. Instead, I will go for the computers. I will go for an upgrade with the efficient upgrade, and then I will build an bread and circuses without the urban growth, but it gets me out of corruption like that, makes me a bit stronger, and makes me prepared against potential unhappy face related events. I'm only at 6 science production right now, but maybe I have a chance with the urban growth to build an additional computer at the next turn, and then maybe develop some technologies quickly and hopefully get a nice value out of this impact of tech. Also, while there are, sadly, it's not the most synergy for it, at least there's Einstein in the game and the space flight, and so I was hoping that also just get for the economical value, it hopefully will be nice going into those computers. I keep 2 tactics, the impact, and a colonization card. I do draw some very interesting impacts here, so I maybe get a bit lucky. I went now into computers and I have now the impact of science available. Variety looks also fine and progress as well, so I did get some hope here that maybe with the help of all of those impacts, I maybe can close the gap a little bit. But for now, totsilence has more science production, and he, like in the last game that we saw, goes for into oil mines, has the railroad, will get an extremely big boost. I think I just couldn't deny that from him, especially I think he still had a strong position. I didn't have the biggest hopes to be able to overtake him. I had bigger hopes overtaking Gandin, so I wasn't willing to go for denial here. I think he could just do some other strong stuff then, but now, of course, he first of all will get a bit stronger, but then he will go for 3 upgrades, going up to 20 resource production that early. That's quite a bit crazy, and if a player is willing to actually upgrade all oil mines, that sometimes can be an indicator that maybe something like economic progress is coming, even though maybe it could also just be worthwhile doing all of those upgrades without the economic progress. And then he will increase his population one more time, getting value out of Maria Theresa. Now it's Gandin's turn, he will increase his population 2 times, goes for the cannons, builds one, builds another one, builds another one, upgrades religion to organized religion to fix his happy faces, takes the revolutionary idea, the reserves, and has the mobile artillery tactic. Out of the sudden he's at 31 strength and is looking quite threatening, but he doesn't have the most science, and at least he invested some science into a technology that is not from age 3, which might potentially be nice for me for the impact of tech. Also, he didn't take those air forces, so he goes for a lot of strength now, but maybe at the cost of potentially not being able to go for that much strength later on in the game. But he is also definitely being a bit threatening in, with an aggression that he could be having. I see here the impact of variety, that just seemed to be the most safest event, and I still have some politics phases to put some events into the deck. The event revealed is indeed the economic progress, which I was not too happy to see, because of course the additional resources that I'm getting here are somewhat useful for me, but yeah, my opponents just gain a lot more out of it. Gandin also a lot of food, so not really a great event for me, and now they might just be running away with all of this economical value. I will use the ocean liner service, and first of all I will develop the military theory. And now, again, like in so many turns in this game, there will be the question on whether I want to be safe from any aggressions from Gandin. I have one H3 card in hand. I think it's an H3 card. It could also be an H2 card. Regardless of what card it is not enough to defend against Gandin with the current amount of strength that I'm having, but it is enough in case I just get one more colonization card. And Now, with the mobile artillery being revealed as a tactic, with me having some potentially interesting tactics in hand, I just didn't want to go for another medieval army tactic here. I just felt that might be too big of a price to pay, and I had some additional draws with the politics of strength. I will get another draw at the end of my turn, and I just was hoping that Gandin won't go for an aggression, and I just felt like it is a risk that I need to take. The economic progress has given both of my opponents again lots of value, and I just need to optimize my moves and maybe just hope that I get a bit of luck, draw the card, so that Gandin just doesn't try an aggression here. So I do think it is the right decision in this case, but again, of course, I could get punished like I did already early in the game. So now I go for this military theory. I sadly can't see if this is an H2 or an H3 defense card. I sadly don't remember it. Sadly, I can't click on those cards in the replay feature. But maybe we can actually... Okay, now that's so a smart idea by me. I have to get the credits to myself here. We can see here in the overview that I have 6 cards from H3, and that clarifies that it is actually an H3 defense card. And let's see how the rest of my turn is looking like, because with an H3 defense card, I think building one more knight going up to 20 strength would already be enough to make sure that I can defend, so I wouldn't even need to go for another army. But building another knight could be bad in case I want to go for those H3 tactics, which also could still be interesting, especially if Gandin misses out in air forces. Maybe there is a potential for me even to go for some aggressive play. I will take the air forces, I will build this second computer, I will take those reserves, and I will take those tanks so that I'm potentially prepared for modern army tactic. And yeah, now I could have built a knight. I might need it anyway in case I want to go for the mobile artillery tactic, but I have now quite a bunch of signs, and I might be able to achieve going for the modern army tactic. And I made the decision to take this risk with it being that easily possible to make sure that I can defend against an aggression. Maybe again I should have just built a knight, but on the other hand, it's not a lot of time left, and I felt like maybe I again have to take that risk. And I was hoping that with me having had the politics of strength, Gandin thinks maybe that I have more defense cards in hand. So I draw some cards, and I do actually draw some wars and a military alliance, potentially giving me the option to go for a military push with those tactics in the wars and also now the pact. But I don't draw a defense card, so at Gandin's turn we will have to see if I get punished for not being able to defend against an aggression. Totsilence goes for the rockets. He had still a lack of military techs, which potentially could have ended badly for him, but now with the rockets he can just build a bunch of them, which already gives him a solid amount of strength. He also makes sure to still draw 3 cards. Goes for the Empire State Building, which he can finish at a low civil action cost, which with having that much production is a very important factor, even though of course he has the architecture. And sadly during Gandin's turn he will go for the spy, and I do get hit by an aggression again during this game. So yeah, maybe I should have built a knight, but yeah, I felt like if I maybe want to go for a peaceful play, I don't really need a knight. If I want to go for some of those tactics, which I might need to get enough potential to actually pull off a war, I maybe don't need a knight, and so I didn't want to do the commitment. I might need every resource that I can get to get into such a tactic, or maybe build some movies in case I can go for a peaceful play. But sadly, Gandin goes for the spy, and I don't have enough defense cards to defend myself. Also, sadly, Gandin gets the chance to get a second copy of Air Force. I was somewhat hoping that, especially with totsilence playing in front of him, that he might be the one who gets a chance to take the Air Forces, which could increase my chances to actually try something aggressive against Gandin. But now with having the Air Forces, and sadly also he goes for Einstein, I was somewhat hoping that maybe he leaves Einstein to me, and with impact of science, progress, and impact of tech coming, Einstein could be a great leader. But sadly Gandin will go for him, takes the computers from him in hand, at least for now, stays on only 5 science production. Now it is my turn. I could offer the military alliance, but in general this turn I need to do a bit of a commitment. I need to commit whether I want to try something militarily in order to come back into the game. I have the wars, I have the tactics, Or if I want to try something peaceful, and I have some still interesting impacts, and there's Gandhi on the row. If I try something peaceful, I think I kinda have to go for Gandhi, otherwise Gandin could soon just be too threatening and I need to build a lot of military. But with the military theories gone, Gandhi makes me relatively safe against Gandin. And I did some war calculations. I actually have just enough science to develop air forces, tanks, riflemen, cannons in 2 turns. And I have a lot of resources. I need to hope, I think, to either get some additional resource from yellow cards or Churchill or Marlene, but it might be achievable. So I thought there is a chance that I can at least go for 2 modern armies with 1 air force, potentially even for 2 modern armies with 2 air forces in 2 turns. And it could end up being a relatively big war. But there's actually one limiting factor, and that is population. I need another I need another work into happiness soon. I need, if I don't want to just accept having a lot of famine, I need to build some farms soon, even potentially a 4th farm, or I need to play reserves of food, which could cause some corruption, and I can't use the card for resources. And if I then want to go for the war, I calculated how many populations I will be available. I just would need to do some huge distraction. I would be very badly prepared for impacts, could get heavily punished for impacts, and with having the air forces, Gandin can just easily go for 3 air forces if he sees that I'm going into military, probably even for another army, maybe even with a 4th air force, and then even so maybe I will get enough strength to win a war. I just felt like it might not be enough. Totsilence, I can hope that maybe he just doesn't have any tactic available, maybe I can do some denial of military tax, but he's just that many resources that also for him I didn't feel confident to damage him with the war, and with that I made a decision to go with the peaceful route, and with going with the peaceful route I just maybe need to hope for a lot of good impacts, and so I didn't want to miss out on the politics phase to offer this pact, and instead just went for seeding the impact of progress, especially because I will take satellites this turn. The event revealed the sadliest the Cold War, so even more science for both of my opponents. Also with seeding, the impact of tech might be revealed earlier, which might be good for me, because Gandin soon might develop a lot of techs with Einstein. I will use the ocean liner service to increase my population. I will build a farm that gets me out of corruption and fixes my famine issues. And then as said, I will go for Gandhi, but in order to start some culture production, which will also be nice to have for a potential impact of culture, I made the decision to, before switching, doing a revolution with Robespierre. Luckily I have still some impacts that I maybe can hope towards them working. And so I was willing to give up on the draws in order to get that democracy for cheaper. That will also be nice for impact of progress. It's a tech for only 9 science for impact of tech. Then I will go for Gandhi, electing him. I am potentially could get hit by aggressions, but it would cost a lot of military actions for my opponents. And I think at the end of the turn, after taking endowment for some additional culture, engineering genius, as I was hoping that I can either go for space flight or fast food chains, and then also the satellites for impact of progress and some additional strength, I built another arena, putting me at 19 strength, making it that at least I can defend against an aggression from Totsilence, who has 1 more military action. Gandin can only go for blunders, and it would cost all of his draws, so I was hoping that I will be somewhat safe. I will be at 33 culture. I'm not that much behind Totsilence, but with having that many resources, I still had more hopes against Gandin, especially because his impact of progress at the moment is quite bad. Maybe if he doesn't get a nice chance to take the necessary techs, that could end up being a really big impact. Also, he still has only developed 1 H3 tech so far, while I already have developed 3. So I was hoping that maybe I could have a shot at finishing before Gandin. Totsilence will increase his population, goes for multimedia, can just build a bunch of them, goes for Mandela to have even more civil actions, builds the theology, takes the democracy, reveals the positional army tactic, finishes the Empire State Building for 32 points. So yeah, his position is looking very strong, and if he doesn't miss out on every military tech and Gandin goes for something military heavy, then it's looking like he has a very good shot at winning the game. Gandin seeds, and now finally my terrorism is revealed. So at the beginning of my next turn I can destroy a multimedia of Totsilence and probably an organized religion, unless Gandin goes for computers now. He goes for the civil service, so sadly is able to improve his impact of progress and also has more civil actions available from now on. Increases his population a bunch of times, builds an organized religion, an additional lab, takes the multimedia, At least the good news are that he didn't develop another tech, meaning that if the impact of tech is out before his next turn, he actually only gets +8 out of this impact. Now it is my turn, and I have to decide if I want to commit to either impact of culture or science. Science being probably the more risky one, because without a culture leader, Gandin can't that easily go for a lot of culture production, and if totsilence has more culture production than me, I still happily take the +7 against Gandin in this position. Or if I'm now offered a military alliance and maybe I'm not willing to take the risk, but I made a decision to see it. I also want the impact of technology. I want to see it revealed soon. The iconoclasm is revealed, that doesn't hit anyone. And then this turn I will use the Oceanliner service to increase my population. I will play the endowment for 6 culture, making space in my hand. I will then take the movies and I will start building one, take the reserves and also play the reserves resources. So now I just increase my culture production. I will be at 52, so I'm getting a bit closer to my opponents. And I am, with having the movies, I'm hopefully it will be relatively certain that I will have more culture than Gandhi. Maybe there's even a shot having more culture than totsilence. So I go for that. As you can see, at this point there's no wonder on the row, which is dangerous, but maybe also gives me a chance. Depending on when the wonders will be revealed, maybe my opponents can take them away. There is, however, maybe a chance that the first wonder could be revealed on totsilence turn. He takes it away, and then the other one isn't revealed on Gandin's turn yet. So I was really hoping that maybe I get a bit of luck on how the civil card deck is ordered, so that maybe Gandin will be the player who ends out without a wonder. Also, I was really hoping towards my next draws. I have already drawn some good impacts, so I got already a bit lucky in that regard, but I might need even more. And I draw some impact of industry, not looking that great at the moment. Impact of strength, maybe in last position, I can make it work. Sadly, I didn't use the wave this turn. I again let myself vulnerable to potential aggressions, hoping that my opponents won't want to pay the civil action, the military action cost drying them. Totsilence seeds, as you can see, there's the space flight revealed. I was really hoping that they will deny it from Gandin. And he also seeds, meaning the impact of tech is revealed, and that one worked out quite nicely for me, giving me now +8 against Gandin. Totsilence gaining the same as I do. He will now go for the democracy, it takes the space flight, builds another multimedia, builds even another multimedia, and doesn't even bother taking the tanks, as he is not really in any danger from a war here. And I was happy to see that he only takes the space flight, meaning out of the 7 cards, 3 are now revealed. And I was really hoping that the fast food chains stay in the deck and that I can take them while Gandin won't be able to finish a wonder. And I do get lucky here, fast food chains are not available, impact of culture is revealed, giving totsilence the most, but still giving me another +7. I hopefully, unless they stay in the deck, will be able to go for the fast food chains, so I really thought maybe things are coming together for me here and I have a shot at actually coming back into this game. Gandin will now go for multimedia, goes for the engineering as well, sadly improving his impact of progress by a bit, and then builds a multimedia, takes the military build-up. And with taking 2 cards, he will make sure that the H end, which is on one hand bad, because getting another draw maybe could have been nice. On the other hand, it's also good, because it makes sure that I get the fast food chains during my turn. Then during my turn, I have to think about politics, because both impact of science and strength would be quite a commitment, and I don't know if I even have a shot at making sure to be stronger than Gandin and them at my next turn. And with me now getting the fast food chains, I thought at this point it's maybe not necessary to take that big of a risk, especially if I keep both of them in hand. I can just commit to one of them at the next turn. And then the question is, do I just want to offer the military alliance now, making myself a bit safer from potential aggressions? For example, I could offer it to Gandin, then I would be safe from totsilence with how I'm playing the turn. However, Gandin might also not be interested in potentially making it easier for me to defend against aggression, so he might just reject the pact. And when I thought about how my next turn will be looking, I thought that there is a chance with how I'm playing the turn, I will get the fast food chains, I will get some yellow cards here, and I will have enough resources to build an H3 urban building, either movies, or maybe, in case it enables impact of science, a computer. Build a fast food chain, still have 6 resources left, and one way to spend those could be, for example, I won't have the most population, could be to just upgrade this mine to coal. And if I do this, then the impact of industry, at least if Gandin doesn't go for more, gives me +3 for seeding. totsilence is out of reach anyway, so I don't really care about how much points I gain against him. Or if he gets a lot of points, he will win this game anyway. We can take a look at the culture again. He has a big lead, he gets the space flight, and no way he doesn't win this game. And with that, with potentially it being an option to go for this upgrade, I see the impact of industry. Even if I don't go for this upgrade with the 3 culture for seeding, it hopefully will still be a +1 for me against Gandin, but at the risk of now revealing the impact of progress or potentially other impacts that I will improve during my turn. So it is a bit of a risk. I was hoping that no impact is revealed, that I will now improve. And that's not completely the case, but one where it's maybe acceptable. First of all, impact of agriculture not really being a great one for me. So the lead that Gandin is having against me gets bigger again, and I actually will build an additional farm this turn to not have any famine, but it only would have given me +1, so not the biggest deal that it one is already revealed now. I will use the ocean liner. I will take the fast food chains, I will build a farm in order to get out of corruption and to not have any famine, and then I will take this urban growth and develop the satellites, and with the urban growth, as said, I can build an H3 building, finish the fast food chains, and still go for a potential upgrade from bronze mine to coal mine, and depending on how much science production and strength Gandin will be having, maybe there will be an option of going for science or strength. I could have offered a military alliance to totsilence, making it maybe a bit more likely that I can overtake Gandin in strength, but I thought maybe the impact of science is the more likely one anyway. If maybe just Gandin wants to maximize his culture production, of course maybe he sees that impact of sciences could be one of my potentially good impacts against him and repairs against that, but still I at the end rather wanted to see the impact of industry. So, yeah, with that, at the end of my turn, I'm at 91 culture. I'm still a bit behind Gandin, but I will get a wonder and he won't get one, so that is giving me some hope. totsilence seeds, and the impact revealed is the impact of progress. If I was able to develop the satellites, and with that I am +4 in this impact against Gandin. totsilence will go for modern infantry, for professional sports, develops 2 technologies, builds another multimedia, builds in professional sports, goes for 1 upgrade, finishes the spaceflight for 32 points. Now it's Gandin's turn, he seeds as well. The impact of architecture is revealed. I was happy to see that one, because that is giving me some points against Gandin, and it's also not the best timing for him, as he will improve his impact of architecture by quite a bit during his turn. He will go play the revolutionary idea, will go for 2 techs with Einstein, dispense some units, uses the military build-up to build 2 air forces, and then builds the multimedia, goes for an upgrade to computers, and goes for an upgrade from temple to organized religion. And yeah, with that he actually prepares very nicely against me deploying any of those impacts. Maybe he went through the impacts that could be very strong for me, and those were of course 2 of them that I could be having, and maybe just wanted to prevent the option from me to go for those, which turns out to be a good decision from him. Now it is my turn, I can't push. I could offer the military alliance, but it doesn't make any difference, so I just skipped this. And then during my turn, there are some different options. The turn that I thought of at the turn before, with building a movie, finishing fast food chains, going for an upgrade from bronze mine to coal, would still work. It would be a fine impact. However, what I also can do is, instead of building a movie, building a religion, which at the first look maybe sounds a bit weird, but if you maybe remember, the impact of variety is still in the deck. I think it was actually the top card now at this point. And with building the religion, I basically gain 3 culture, only 1 less than the movies, but I have more resources remaining, which I can maybe use to do some stuff. And I tried out a lot of different ideas. For example, now that the impact of architecture is out and I don't see the impact of science, and with my impact of balance being limited by the farms, I can actually destroy a computer without any drawback for any impact, meaning I can get easily an additional population from there. I thought about going for religion and just building an additional mine. That already gives me +1 for the impact of industry and +1 for the fast food chains, compared to upgrading. So, and I only gain 1 less with going for a religion instead of a movie, so already that turn is better than just going for a movie and upgrading. At the end, I went for an even different turn. I also thought about a turn where I, maybe after having built this additional mine, destroy it again and build a unit to prepare for a potential impact of harmony. At the end, I went for something different. I indeed built an additional mine, I destroyed this computer, I built an additional farm actually as well. I then finished the fast food chains for 27 points, quite a big one, thanks to also having now built this farm and mine. And with my last civil action, I actually disband a unit and then built this religion. Of course, this harms my harmony, but apart from that, not any other impacts, and maybe I need to hope for the right impacts anyway. It gives me a lot of save points because I gain, compared for example to the movie and upgrade line, I only gain 1 less culture out of the religion, but I gain +1 from industry, another +2 from fast food chains, so 2 more save culture. And while I sabotage my harmony here a little bit, I also improve my impact of balance by +2, which is also an impact that certainly could be in there. Both harmony and balance could be in there, so I gain 2 more save points compared to the movie upgrade line. Of course, the religion building a mine line also could be very viable if the impact of harmony is in there. It could be bad, but at the end I made the decision to take that risk and instead improve the impact of balance a bit more and just gain the most save points out of my turn that I think I can, with the impacts that I have knowledge about. So that was my turn at the end, and yeah, before the final impacts, I am actually 12 culture ahead of Gandin, so there's certainly some hope there. I have knowledge about 2 impacts out of the 3, which give me slight benefits against Gandin, and then I have to survive 3 impacts that I don't have knowledge about, and there are certainly some that could be very bad. There are also some that I could hope towards, like Impact of Wonders, maybe seeded by totsilence. Impact of Happiness would also give me +2, so there are some that I can hope towards, but also quite a lot of bad ones, and let's see what the final impacts have to say. The first one is sadly an impact of balance. At least I prepared for it, so it's not as bad as it could have been if I would have went for another line, but still it makes that Gandin is already 4 points behind me. Then the impact of variety is revealed, giving me +2 against Gandin's, not a really big impact, but at least a small benefit. Same is true for the impact of industry, which gives me now +1 against Gandin, with me actually having built an additional coal mine. And now we have 2 impacts remaining. I don't have knowledge about them, and I just need to keep my 7 culture lead, totsilence of course being out of reach anyway. So let's see what those final impacts are. We have the impact of harmony, so sadly that one is in. That may be disbanding this not being the ideal decision, but the impact of balance was in there as well, which would have been worse in some other lines, and I got more save points, so it still wasn't too bad, even with the impact of harmony being in there, because impact of balance was in as well. But that impact of harmony now, of course, being not that great. With some other lines, I could have even gotten up to +20 out of the harmony, but at the cost of some save points and a less big balance. Now I'm actually 1 point behind Gandin, and now I need some luck. But it's possible. Impact of Happiness would give me +2. That's just exactly the amount that I need to overtake Gandin. Impact of Wonders would be enough to overtake Gandin. So let's see if the last impact is the right one. And it is the impact of Competition that gives +12 to Gandin, and sadly only +5 to me, meaning that I'm at the end 9 culture behind Gandin. So I could have gone for some different variations, but with that big of difference at the end, I think, regardless of how I would have played the last turn, there was no way how I could have overtaken Gandin. Yeah, so sadly, at the end, it's not enough for me to overtake Gandin, and I also lose this game. totsilence, again, having a very strong game going, being able to win this, and we will see it in the standings soon, now being at in a very good position to maybe win the league at the end. That game felt a bit similar like the one before, in the sense that I, during H2 and at some parts of the game, felt like I'm really behind. But then in H3 some things came together, me drawing some good impacts, Gandin not getting a wonder, and that let me hope that maybe I can do a comeback, and it was actually quite close at the end, but sadly, like in the game before, it was not enough, and I at the end lose this one. Yeah, and this game was very heavily dictated by the military push by Gandin, but also then continued by totsilence with his Chin of Arc. I did some greedy decisions. I didn't go for the swordsman. Maybe I should have skipped either Code of Laws or the library. I later on had multiple turns where I let myself vulnerable for an aggression. For some turns, I think it was the right decision, even after I got hit by one. For other turns, I think it might have been the wrong decision. For example, with taking the civil action from Saladin. On the other hand, in hindsight, that might have even worked out fine with allowing me that strong Robespierre Republic turn. So, yeah, some really tough decisions. Maybe I should have built a knight to not get hit by the spy, but as you can see, at the end I didn't need the knight with going for the peaceful line, and the resource might have been missing anywhere else, but the science of course could have been useful as well, and might have helped Gandin to score more points with Einstein. So yeah, sadly I got hit by a bunch of aggressions, so that didn't go that great for me. I think might made at the end a nice try, that Robespierre turn, and then the impacts in H3, and made it that it was actually quite close between me and Gandin, but sadly it was not enough at the end. Alright, with that, for me, all of the games from the first batch are finished, so let's take a look at how the standings are looking. And as you can see in the standings, it is now looking quite tough for me, but quite good for totsilence. He is now 17 points, has a 6 points lead before Wolf, 7 points before Ipogi. It's not done yet, but at the moment it looks like he might have really good chances to be the winner of the season at the end. And for me, after the first 3 games have finished, it is definitely clear that the only thing that I can be hoping for from now on is to stay in the league, and that will already be quite tough. I at least will need 2 wins. I need to overtake one of Wolves and Ipogi. Probably I need more than 2 wins, at least 2 wins in the second place, maybe even 3 wins. So it will be tough, but it's still possible. So I will try my best in the second batch of games, and then we will see if I will be able to do it. Also, I hope you're looking forward to those games. And that you're excited to see how the season will be ending. I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. And then, thanks for watching. Have a nice time, and see you in the next video.